Hello everybody, thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. This presentation will be covering off the Algo 8301 voice paging adapter and scheduler used for interfacing voice over IP solutions with an existing analog adapter and or managing a schedule situation, which we'll be going through. The 8301 paging adapter and scheduler is a PoE SIP compliant multi-class capable adapter designed for integrating your consumer, commercial and professional audio amplifiers into an IP-based solution environment to enable you to use paging and or scheduling of messages. The 8301 is a scheduler. It relies on an NTP server. The 8301 can provide bells, as in scheduled bells, scheduled tones, customer service announcements and or emergency announcements for school, retails, manufacturing, healthcare, etc. The 8301 has a 1 GB of memory available on the appliance device, e.g. it's standalone, doesn't require a PC to run, so it's reliable and robust. On this 1 GB we can store WAV files which can be played via the 8301 line out port to the pager if desired, as in the analog pager, or can be multicast across to other Algo speakers, paging adapters and even strobe lights. The multicasting capabilities allow the SIP registered adapter to page simultaneously stream a multicast audio to all the other adapters. The 8301 in its very basic level is typically just used to connect an existing paging amplifier to a new voice over IP environment, e.g. so if you're putting in a new voice over IP solution to replace a traditional PBX or paging system and they have an analog paging system in place, the 8301 is used to interface the voice over IP through to your existing amplifier so that the customer doesn't have to go to the expense of rewiring and removing or replacing their existing pager. A situation where this would be relevant, for example, let's say we've got a school that has a existing analog amplifier in place in their existing buildings, but they're putting in a brand new administration block and classrooms, whatever, and that is all fiber linked between the buildings. It's got fiber between the floors and of course structured cabling and IT network throughout the building. Now the cost of or even logic of putting an analog amplifier in there is ridiculous. So we would put in an IP paging solution. The 8301 would interface to their existing analog pager so that they don't have to rip it out at this stage. They can migrate across as they move forward on that one, but that'll also then drive the new voice over IP paging system and of course interface to the new either cloud system or on-premise SIP server. The line output of an 8301 can be connected directly to an audio input of an amplifier. The impedance is between 600 ohm and 10 kilo ohm. If you've got amplifiers that are connected directly to a dry port on a phone system, it'll work fine, but it'll also, the 8301 will provide both the basic dry port or the dry port and a dry contact relay closing function to activate the amplifier if required. It also, the 8301 also allows you to you've got a telephone answering device. FXS will replace the answering device, eliminate the need for an FXS port or an ATA. So if we have a quick look at your typical paging system, legacy system that's in place, we've got your telephone over here. That can of course be a digital phone or an analog phone. You have your traditional non-branded PBX in here. That could be anything, name you want, Nortel, Panasonic, Samsung, doesn't matter, it's just a PBX. But how we used to do it, of course, in the old days, we used to have the dry page port, which a lot of the PBXs just simply went across that. They didn't have a dry contact, but some of them also had a dry contact to turn on the amplifier. Then we had our analog amplifier and our analog speakers. Okay. So now that we've replaced the system with a hosted or even a premise SIP PBX, you've now got a SIP call to be made, and somehow we've got to interface it through to that amplifier over here. So what do we put in there? Quite simple, an 8301. Okay, the 8301 takes on into the SIP network via its network port, and then via its outputs, etc., goes across to your amplifier. Now, it can be done via simply an input port or via a contact to trigger the amplifier. If we have a sort of a close look at the physical 8301, you can see it has a multitude of interfaces and outputs of what we can use. So we're just going to have to spend 5 minutes going through these. So if we just look at the front view here, we have got our PoE powered network port, so we don't need an external power source to actually run this device at all. It'll run off PoE. We've then got our LED indicators here. One is for the SIP registration, just to say that the SIP registration is active. We have the multicast button tells us whether it is a slave or a master. I would say generally the 8301 would be a master, but it can be a slave if it needs to be. We'll go through that in more detail shortly. The input will be active if we have got an input source program to be turned on. Now, for example, here is your aux in. Now, this would be for music on hold. So we could have an iPod or a radio, whatever device you want to use, streaming in music into the device, and we could multicast and send this music out through the analog pager, for example, and also multicast it through to the Algo IP speakers as well, so that when somebody actually dials in and does a page broadcast, the music is turned off and the voice comes through. Once you finish the page, it drops out and the music returns. And then we've got an aux out basically for either a headset or for speakers if you so wish. Now, because this is actually like it's very much running like a little voice server, a scheduler, you can actually play announcements and listen to announcements whilst you are programming it via browser. On the rear view, we have got XLR mini inputs for balanced and isolated music or paging. We've got XLR mini outputs, again balanced for outside. Then we've got our terminal blocks in, terminal blocks out, and also for our relays in and relays out. So if we're going to be doing what we'd call a hybrid paging solution, this is what I was talking a little bit about earlier. We've got our hosted or on-premise PBX, which is voice over IP, SIP. We've got the 8301, and that is directly connected to an amplifier, and these are your existing amplifier speakers all in place. So you basically call the 8301 via a SIP registration. The 8301 will answer and play a tone, which will then broadcast through to these analog speakers. At the same time, we can also connect up the new Algo 8180 and bullhorn version of the speakers, and these can also page at the same time. Fundamental difference between this analog solution part up here and using the Algo IP speakers is that we can now start multicasting, and we'll be talking about that later. Multicasting in layman's language is basically zone paging or paging zones. Okay, no limit of number of combination of devices. So these bullhorns, etc., there's no limit to them. There's just keep on putting them as long as they're on the same network. Let's have a look at some of the advanced features of the 8301. In basic mode, the 8301 offers 9 multicast zones. E.g., these are 9 paging zones, so that we can do paging zone 1 and speakers 1 to 3 will page. Paging 2 probably could be speaker number 3 to 5 will page. Paging for zone 3 could be all 5 or 6 the speakers at once, any group of combinations that you want to do. So they're just basically multicast zones. Just to make life even more interesting, the 8301 has what we call an expanded mode. Now this is unlicensed and can just be turned on, and this will enable you to have 50 zones. Now these are 50 multicast zones, so you can create groups. You can have hundreds of IP speakers running on the 8301, and you can put them into different zones. So no matter what you want to do, and you can have the speakers in more than one zone, so you have 50 zones. It's quite impressive of what you can do with this. But we keep, the reason there's got a basic and an expanded is that basic is sort of simple to get your head around. There's 9 zones, away you go, and I'd say 90% of the installations that are going to be going in will just use 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 paging zones or multicast zones. But if for a larger corporate site, this 8301 little server, and is really, as you start looking at it, it really starts looking like a little server here. You can have up to 50 zones with various speakers connected up. Paging zones can be set up by a single zone SIP registration and a number or DTMF selectable. Okay, so you dial one SIP registration and then dial a post digit using DTMF tones on your phone, and you can access it that way if you so wish. On top of that, if you so wish, you could have each paging zone having its own SIP registration. E.g., so you could have extension 301 would dial paging zone 1, 302, paging zone 2, paging zone 20, 320, paging zone 50, 350. So it's a SIP registration, you would dial each one directly. So 2 ways of doing it. You can have a single SIP registration, and then basically the 8301 will answer and look for the post digit tones to tell it what zone to page it. Okay, and or you can have individual SIP registrations for each zone if you so wish. Horses for courses, various reasons for doing one way or the other. The Algo paging endpoints, now these can be either 8180s, 8188s, 8186s or 8128s, can be assigned to either single or multiple paging groups. Okay, now as we pointed out, there can be up to 50 of them. So for example, we may have an 8180, and these don't have to be registered, by the way. They can just be sitting across the network and they'll just be activated via multicast. So we have an 8180 and we just tick basically what paging group do you want it to be in. Paging group 1, 3, 10, 15 and 50. It's up to you. Now the multicast groups or paging groups can be used for paging and ringing assignments, which we'll talk about shortly as well. So they're a bit of a combination there. So, and there's unlimited amount of paging devices we can put in here. So as we've talked about, got the Algo IP points can be selected in multiple page groups. We've got an unlimited number of paging endpoints. You could have 100, you could have 2,000, it doesn't matter. It's pretty much unlimited. Well, it is unlimited, the number that you can put in there. We've already talked about the IP paging points can be selected into multiple page groups. You can have up to 10 SIP registrations used for ringing. Now, these 10, this is this point down here, the second to the bottom, down the bottom here. These are separate to the 50 individual paging zone SIP extensions you could have. These are another 10 ringing registrations. Now, what that means is that essentially if a call comes in, we could have a SIP registration registered to the 8301 that is associated with a zone, a multicast zone or a paging zone. Okay, so one of the multicast zones could be the warehouse at the back, the office, the front, wherever you want, whatever speakers you want in there, you can have in that group. So when that extension is rung, instead of answering and paging, it actually rings, and you can have all sorts of various ring cadences and things going through it because it's just a WAV file that you attach to it. So then in your cloud-based solution or in your local-based SIP PBX solution, you simply include that extension in the ringing group of whatever you want to ring, and then it will in turn make the ringing come through the speakers that you have selected. Okay, so again, very powerful. You can have up to 10 of them. You can have separate paging groups, or use existing paging groups to create a ring group. It's all it's very simple and just tick option in how to set these up. There will be a technical rundown of this in another presentation. If you want more information about that, you can run through that. And of course, you can assign these ringing registrations to any multicast group. We've talked about that. So now we've got a paging adapter here that we can have a call made to a SIP registration. It's via hosted or on-premise. You've got a PoE. It's heading off to your Algo 8180. Put a music on hold source in there because we want music playing through our speakers on this particular site. And then the system answers, and then it pages. Now, it's got the analog output for your existing amplifier, and of course your speakers. We've got the 8186 here, the 8180, and the 8128 strobe. Now, strobe does not have sound on it, but you can use it in respect for, in a very noisy environment, for example, a ringing environment. We can have it so that it simply flashes and strobes out. Then we're heading on to another one of the advanced features, the emergency notification. The emergency notification allows for an announcement to be triggered and left playing, or latched as they call it, by dialing a pre-configured extension number. Now, again, this is separate again from the paging extensions and the ringing extensions. This is another block of 10 registrations that you can use for emergency notification. So, for example, we could have a dial 400, and that sets off an emergency evacuation alarm for a shopping mall, for example. And that announcement, which is all pre-recorded in the Algo 8301, will broadcast across all the speakers that you've told it to do. If it's an analog paging, it'll broadcast it across that. If it's a multicast IP endpoints with the Algo paging speakers, it'll broadcast across whatever paging zones and or multicast you've enabled it to do. You've got another extension that you can actually dial that'll cancel it. So once you dial, say 400, and then you go 409 to cancel it, if you dial 400, it will simply broadcast the message and keep repeating the message until someone cancels it by dialing another cancel extension number. Now, where would you use this? Well, evacuation, lockdown, medical emergency, etc. Use your imagination on this one. Schools, for example, nowadays are a good fit for this particular solution, because schools, for the health and safety of the kids, if an intruder comes on, or there's an event happening close to the school. I recall about 3 months ago there was in a local neighbourhood with a school in it, someone decided to banish a shotgun towards somebody, and they were about 200-300 meters from the school. Of course, the police were called in, and the school went into lockdown mode, which basically means that the teachers lock all the doors, have the kids down and in a safe area, and so the kids aren't wandering around the school grounds so they could get hurt. Now, in this particular environment, the emergency evacuation was basically some hooting and whistling of sirens, and then they had an announcement which informed the staff that it's locked down, and then actually read out the lockdown procedures. It was a long message, and that's all that happened. It repeated again and again and again, but it actually was repeating or reciting what the lockdown procedure was, so the teachers and everybody in the school knew what was going on and knew what the policy was and how to do it. Medical emergencies, it could be in a large factory environment, something goes wrong, someone's hurt, caught in a machine or something like that. Dial an emergency code, and emergency notification is fired off. Now, because you've got all the up to 10 different extensions, you could actually split this up into 9 different zones.
so that that area knows that there's an emergency and to shut down all the equipment and everybody knows what's going on. Integrate it with fire alarms, integrate it with shopping malls, the list goes on and on. Airports, anything you need to do. So we've got up to 10 extensions can be registered with 10 different announcements. Audio can be easily created and loaded up to the 8301 and create custom announcers. Now we said earlier that it's got 1 gigabyte of memory. You can have WAV files on it. You can basically record your greetings of what you want it to say and put any audio that you want on the greeting, and the 8301 will play it. So as we've gone through, the functions used for lockdowns, emergency evacuations, fire alarm messages, medical emergency, tsunami alerts. There's hotels, for example, in some exposed areas, that after an earthquake, a tsunami alert will play into the hotel. Now, I'm aware of a situation in a country close to the heart where that there was an earthquake and a tsunami actually hit the island, and it actually killed some people. Most unfortunate, very sad. But the problem was the guests weren't aware of it because they were asleep in their rooms at the time. Okay, so because they had no way of letting people know. So in this situation, tsunami alert, hazard alarms, weather alerts, security notifications. The list goes on. Use your imagination on this one. So your emergency notification, again, simply via a SIP registration. You dial the number. For example, in this case, it's 900. It can output the emergency lockdown through to the amplifier, analogue amplifier if you so wish, and of course broadcast across to the IP-based speakers and in whatever multicast zones you want to use. Scheduling. The 8301 has a full scheduling menu and management system all on board. Basically the scheduler is for playing automatic messages and WAV files. You can put tones through it, bells, announcements, even music. Doesn't matter. But what it does is you create a schedule, and then you can set your whole schedule up. You can use it because the NTP server can synchronize with the IP clocks and the network time. It's very accurate, and you can use it in such places as schools, universities, retail, healthcare announcements, store closing hours, workplace shift changes, breaks, airports, manufacturing, etc. We could use it. I'll use an example for a school. In the old days of all going to school at say 8:30 was an 8:30 bell, get ready to go. A 10 to 9 bell to start, get ready to start class. 9 o'clock start, morning tea, lunchtime. So in a very simplest form, it's got a bell scheduler. Using the 1 gig of memory, we can store all the WAV files and emergency notifications and anything we want. It's designed to create unlimited time slots within a 24-hour period across a calendar, which we'll show you shortly. And the various bells or announcements can go to the various paging groups, again up to 50 if you so wish, at any time you'd like to do. So again, just a quick outline how it all works. We've got the Algo running here. It's running on an NTP server. We can amplify it, send it out to an analog amplifier if we so wish, and or do simultaneous multicasts across to various paging groups using the Algo end devices. How it works. Pretty straightforward, really. What you first of all do is you create a schedule. Okay, well, this might be, for example, our term 1 schedule. Okay, and this is just the everyday boring schedule. And 8:30 it might be a bell to say you should be on school premises. 8:50 is a gong giving the warning to say that it's just about time to go to your class. At 9 o'clock the class starts. At 10 o'clock it finishes. So you just keep rolling through what you want, and just keep adding times, and then you can also set them through to what page zones. Now, I can't do a drop down on this, but if I did a drop down and I had the 50, the advanced multicast
activated, this actually here would show me 50 page zones. Okay, and we can send through this various schedule. So then I might have a schedule for term 2, and then a term 3, and term 4. And then I might have a teacher's day for term 1, or a parent teacher's day. So on this parent teacher's day, the school finishes at 12 o'clock, but then from 3 o'clock on, the parents might start coming, and the bells would actually tell the teachers. There'll be different sections. It might be 10 minutes per parent. It can actually then start doing a 10-minute cycle, or with 5 minutes in between for the parents to get between different rooms, so that the teachers can schedule their parent-teachers meetings, that type of thing. Okay. Again, it's unlimited. Create as many schedules as you so wish. Then what you do is you go to the calendar, and you then start assigning which schedule you want for one day. So this is a classic example here. I've used for Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all these are all term 1. This is a schedule term 1 that I've created, and I've assigned them for that day. But on Wednesday, the 14th, I've got a parent-teachers day, so I'm using a different schedule. Now, it could be a sports day, could be anything. If you don't want anything assigned, e.g. to remain silent, you don't assign any schedule at all. Okay, so unlimited scheduling, put it in, set up whatever changes you want. It's all browser based, very simple to set up, administer from any PC browser, and because it's an appliance based, because the 8301 doesn't run on a computer, you don't need to have a computer running all the time. It'll just simply sit there running on the PoE doing its thing. It doesn't have any spinning bits in it like a hard drive and CPU fans, etc. So it's exceedingly reliable. It's a reliable long-term solution, so don't underestimate that. So just to summarize, it enables the key features. It enables you for a traditional lamp to be connected to a voice over IP solution, either balanced or isolated line outputs. It'll handle G711 and G722 wideband codecs. SIP, you can have 10 ringing extensions and up to 50 paging extensions. You can pass DTMF through to legacy zone controllers. RTP broadcasting, and also handles Polycom paging groups. Dry contact, input and outputs. 3.5 music on hold, scheduled announcements, tones, ring and service, etc. So thank you for your time. If you've got any queries, questions, please contact us. The Algo 8301 is a great little product. It's because it's appliance based, it is a nice, rock solid, reliable solution for your end customers, and as you can see from just the scheduling interface, it's very simple to create schedules and administer. So from a end customer perspective, they enjoy it a lot. There will be a technical overview. Have a nosy at that, and of course any feedback, questions, feel free to give us a call. Thank you again for your time.